Guys, welcome into my official 2022 preseason NFL tier rankings video. I remember back in early March, I wanted to make one of these, but I didn't really see a purpose considering at that point, free agency hadn't happened, the draft hadn't happened, and I just honestly forgot about it. So here we are today, randomly on a June summer day talking about the NFL 2022. I've got my 6 custom categories I always make. We've got the Super Bowl contenders category, which probably going to be 4 or 5 teams. It speaks for itself. These are going to be the teams I truly think can win the Super Bowl in 2022. Division contenders, these are going to be teams I don't think necessarily are Super Bowl, potential teams, but they can win their division. Above average is basically a fringe playoff team. You win maybe 9, 10 games at the most. Average is 7, 8, 9 wins. Below average is like a 5 or a 6 win team. And then the worst are going to be the teams that are in contention for the number 1 overall pick with like 3 or 4 wins for 2022. So guys, I believe this is in a row. Alphabetically, you've got Atlanta, you've got Arizona, so it is in alphabetically done. We're just gonna go team by team, starting with the Arizona Cardinals. So for the Cardinals, I am going to be putting them probably in the above average category. You can make the argument they should be division contenders, but with the Rams in that division, also the 49ers, the NFC West is very tough. The thing to watch with the Cardinals, what's going on with Kyler Murray? He wants a new contract after just 3 years in the NFL. If you're Arizona, he does look the part. He looks like he's a franchise quarterback, but does his height limit his ceiling? I know people have been talking about, height doesn't matter, but no, Kyler Murray legitimately is like 5'9.5", maybe 5'10" at the most. Does that limit his potential overall to get significantly better? I don't know. That's something Arizona is going to have to talk about. DeAndre Hopkins is suspended the first 6 games as well. The defense, to me, is very average. There's really no eye-popping superstars. So we're going to go with above average. They do have a franchise quarterback, but they're in a tough division. I don't see much of a chance of them winning the division and certainly not making it to the Super Bowl. So we're going with just maybe a 9 or a 10 win season for Arizona in 2022. Next, we've got the Atlanta Falcons. So right now, I'm going to put them in the below average category. You could make a case they should go into the worst. They kind of have a very interesting quarterback situation because they drafted Desmond Ridder in the 3rd round, I believe. And, if you're Atlanta, you got to give Ridder a chance. By week 10 or week 11, know what you have in Desmond Ridder. If I'm an Atlanta Falcons fan, personally, I'm rooting for my team to lose because even if you think Desmond Ridder is the future, there is an absolute superstar pass rusher, Will Anderson, where if you get him, you've got a number 1 receiver, a building block in Drake London. Maybe you've got your franchise quarterback in Desmond Ridder, and then you get a superstar pass rusher, franchise pass rusher in Will Anderson. And then if Desmond Ridder isn't the guy, be proactive. Don't stick to him, and you have the number 2 overall pick, CJ Stroud, Bryce Young. They're better pro prospects. Take one of them. So if I was a Falcons fan, I would be rooting for my team to lose. What's most likely going to happen, Marcus Mariota will probably start the first 8 or 9 games at least, and I would say they'd probably be like 2-7 and probably go to a different quarterback. The other unfortunate situation for them is the depreciation of Calvin Ridley. This time last year, Calvin Ridley could probably be traded for a first-round pick at least. Now, after last year, he had some mental health issues. He has a gambling, thing where he's suspended from the NFL now. It's unfortunate. And he also wants to be traded on top of that. Next, we've got the Baltimore Ravens. So the Baltimore Ravens at this point, I will definitely be putting them in the division contenders category. There are a lot of people I've heard this offseason that are extremely high on Baltimore, possibly to be a Super Bowl contender. I'm not going to go that far. Lamar Jackson certainly is a unique quarterback. They lose Hollywood Brown. I am expecting Rashard Bateman to really come into his own, and Mark Andrews is a really good tight end. They also have a good defense. Looking at that AFC North, a lot of uncertainty. What's going on with the Browns? The Bengals, personally, I'm expecting them to regress a little bit. I could see Baltimore very easily winning the division, and we might actually have to bump them up to a Super Bowl contender. Maybe towards the back end. We'll see. It's still early. This is going to evolve. Next, we have the Buffalo Bills. It's very clear they're one of the top 2 or 3 Super Bowl contenders. Just based on recent history, this is a year you would say this is the Bills' year. They have yet to make a Super Bowl with Josh Allen, with Stephon Diggs. They're absolutely loaded. I would have loved to see them draft Breece Hall late in the first round. Personally, they didn't do it. I still think they need help at running back. And I would, Breece Hall is such a bell cow. He's also really fast. But either way, the Bills, it's almost like they're due. There is going to be so many people picking the Bills not only to make the Super Bowl, but to win the Super Bowl because you're trying to be different. And it's like they're the exotic team to pick. They haven't made the Super Bowl with Josh Allen. It's their time. But also you could say the same thing with the, Ravens and Lamar Jackson. So both of these teams are unique. But the Bills, it's unfortunate what happened to them last year with the overtime situation with the Chiefs game. They're certainly going to be one of the top 2 favorites at this point. We'll see how much Josh Allen can improve. Josh Allen's also going to be an MVP favorite. He hasn't won one yet, so he'll be an MVP favorite. Next, we have the Carolina Panthers. The Panthers, what are they doing, man? You almost want to put them in worst due to the quarterback situation. They do have decent surrounding talent. We'll see if Christian McCaffrey can stay healthy. You've got DJ Moore, who I think is one of the most underrated receivers. And then you've got 2 defensive players that were very high draft picks, Derek Brown and J.C. Horn, who barely played last year. He was a former top 10 overall pick and basically got injured really early into his rookie season. Both of these teams, you could make an argument they're the worst. I think I'm going to have to with the Panthers. Maybe they trade for Baker, but you're going into the season with the worst starting quarterback statistically from last year, Sam Darnold. It's just a horrible, horrible situation. Next, we have the Chicago Bears. Oh, my goodness. The Bears were going to move in front of the Falcons. They always seem to have at least a competent defense, but it's just so unfortunate. We're seeing them single-handedly slaughter the career of Justin Fields. You have so many chances in the draft to get yourself a Trey McBride in the second round. Draft David Bell. And they come out of there with Velus Jones Jr., who's going to be a 25-year-old rookie from Tennessee. This is so sad what's happening to Justin Fields. There's just no weapons. Darrell Mooney's a good young receiver. But man, the first 2 players they draft, they don't even have a first-round pick. They have 2 second-round picks, and they draft 2 defensive backs. Jaquan Brisker's good. I think that was a good value pick. But it's like, take Jaquan Brisker and David Bell. Take Jaquan Brisker and Trey McBride. You have to get your young quarterback weapons. You can't ruin his career. He needs to get confidence. He needs to see passes be completed. He needs to have a good game where he throws for 320 yards. I thought Justin Fields showed amazing promise that Monday night game last year against the Pittsburgh Steelers in Pittsburgh. If you guys remember that, they didn't win, but he threw for over 300 yards. He looked really good. Maybe they can win 7 games. They go 7-10, 8-9. That would put them more on the average trajectory, but I just can't see that right now. Also, Justin Fields was, recently quoted as saying, we're not ready to play. And people kind of took that and it's like, wow. But, honestly, it's not that big of a quote to me. It's, June. So I would, you'd kind of expect that at this point. They haven't even had a preseason game. Next, we have the Cincinnati Bengals. So I'm sure many people will put them up here. I will probably put them right here. I think there's going to be some regression from this Bengals team overall. They still have a superstar franchise quarterback in Joe Burrow, who I absolutely love. The defense is, it's decent. They have some players. I don't think they have any star players on their defense. And they also do have Jamar Chase, who's an absolute beast. The receiver room is unbelievable. But what tends to happen with these teams that kind of burst onto the scene, it would completely shock me if Cincinnati made the Super Bowl, honestly, in back-to-back years. That's just my personal opinion. So I move them down to division contenders because I really don't see any scenario they go back to the Super Bowl back-to-back. People are going to disagree with me. These are just my predictions. It's whatever. Moving on, we have the Cleveland Browns. I was actually tempted to make a personal category for the Cleveland Browns because where do you rank this team? So right now, I think I'm just going to put them in above average. Maybe you could go division contenders. The expectation is Deshaun Watson is going to be suspended for X amount of games, whether it's 8 or 6 or 4. If he appeals it, does it get reduced? Does he get suspended for the full season, people are saying, with the 24 allegations? It's virtually impossible to rank the Browns because of the whole Deshaun Watson thing. We're going to put them in division contenders. Let's say Deshaun Watson gets suspended for 6 games. If the Browns can weather the storm, go 2-4 with Jacoby Brissett, maybe 3-3. That would be pushing it, though. The roster overall with Deshaun Watson, I would say, is borderline Super Bowl contenders. David Bell was one of the best picks in the entire draft. You also have a young receiver, Donovan Peoples-Jones, and then you get Amari Cooper. I would probably say they're Super Bowl contenders if there wasn't the issue with Deshaun Watson, but that's hanging over their heads right now. Next, we have the Dallas Cowboys. So the Cowboys are a team that certainly do have a franchise quarterback. I don't think I can go as far as to say they are Super Bowl contenders. They do have Micah Parsons. Micah Parsons is unbelievable. The one big issue with Dallas is it's just Ezekiel Elliott and his contract. It's a major problem, and it's unfortunate. Zeke is basically already washed, and at best he's an average running back. But they still have him under contract for one more season before they can cut him or release him and not lose, not eat too much money. Dak Prescott, again, he's a franchise quarterback. They do lose Amari Cooper. It'll be interesting to see how they replace him. I know they drafted a receiver in the 3rd round, I think. And, CeeDee Lamb, will he be able to step up? Dalton Schultz, I don't like Dalton Schultz. You got to be able to block. If you're a tight end, you have to block. Dalton Schultz cannot block. He really can't. So we're going to keep them in division contenders. Micah Parsons is a beast. Trayvon Diggs, he's a home run type cornerback. He either gets interceptions or he allows 50-yard touchdowns. So definitely you like him because of the turnovers, but overall we will put them in the upper echelon of division contenders. I certainly think they're going to win their division. They're better than the Eagles, definitely, in my opinion. Next, we have the Denver Broncos. So the Denver Broncos definitely maybe a little bit of a risk with Russell Wilson. How good are they? But I just think in general, the defense is really good. The offense, you're talking about a really young nucleus led by Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy. We're still waiting for his breakout year. KJ Hamler coming off injury. This is going to be a really good offense. They did lose Noah Fant in the trade, but they have an above-average defense with now a franchise-type quarterback. The AFC West is a gauntlet. It's just, to me, they're really borderline. You could throw them in division contenders. You know what? Do I see a way they can win the Super Bowl next year? Not really. We'll put them in the front end of division contenders. It's just tough because I don't know how good Russell Wilson is going to be with Denver and that offense. They do have a really good young running back, Javonte Williams. I think he'll have at least 1,200 yards. He was a second-round pick a year ago who really blossomed in the second half of last year. Next, we have the Detroit Lions, and this is another team I'm going to put in the worst category. So the Lions, they are getting better. They've got 2 good young receivers. They took a little bit of a chance with the Jameson Williams pick, trading up. He has the ACL, but he should be healthy. They also made a great pick last year in the 4th round with Amon-Ra St. Brown, who I think is going to develop into one of the better slot receivers in the NFL. But you're still rolling with Jared Goff. I think they're tanking. Aiden Hutchinson's going to be a good addition to the defense. Jeff Okudah might win comeback player of the year or most improved player, whatever. He's an absolute beast. And I know he struggled his first 2 years. He's been injured. I'm telling you guys, Jeff Okudah, you heard it here first. He's going to be a shutdown corner. Him and Aiden Hutchinson are 2 great defensive players to build around. But it's tough to take a team seriously that's starting Jared Goff. Jameson Williams, will he be ready by week 5 or week 6? We really don't know. If you're Detroit, you really want to try and get a top 2 or top 3 pick so you can draft a Bryce Young or a CJ Stroud personally. So if I was a Lions fan, I would root against my team. That's just my opinion. Next, we have the Green Bay Packers. I am going to go with division contenders for the Packers. We will be putting them over the Cowboys just because I'd say Aaron Rodgers. I mean, you could argue the Cowboys should be in front of them, honestly, but I am not high on the Packers front office. I think they have one of the worst front offices in the league. They had an absolutely horrible offseason, and honestly, it's Aaron Rodgers' own fault for not going to a different team. Denver would have been a great option. You know, the Packers end up losing Devontae Adams. They were able to trade him for a first-round pick, but then, I mean, you're drafting Quay Walker in the first round. It's a horrible pick. You're drafting, Christian Watson with the second pick of the second round when David Bell is going to be 50 times better. I have no clue what that front office is doing. It is a complete mess. But you have to keep them in division contenders because Aaron Rodgers is one of the top 3 quarterbacks in the NFL at worst. So they have to be there. Next, we have the Houston Texans. So this is another team that you're going to say is one of the worst teams. You could argue, they're the worst. I'll say they are the worst. They're tanking. It's very clear. It's very obvious. They might have swindled the Browns in that Deshaun Watson trade, depending on how many games Deshaun Watson gets. But, Davis Mills is not a future franchise quarterback. They know it. Everyone knows it. Let's stop pretending like he is. The reason they're going with Davis Mills is to purposefully lose games so they can get a top quarterback, C.J. Stroud, Bryce Young, whoever's available, whatever quarterback they get. They are going for the number 1 overall pick, and I completely respect that. I totally get it, and I like when teams tank personally. That is just my opinion. Next, we have the Indianapolis Colts, so they're definitely a division contender. I'll probably put them right here, smack dab in the middle of the Cowboys and the Browns. They get Matt Ryan. He's a decent quarterback. But to me, their ceiling is rather low. I don't really see much of a chance they have at the Super Bowl due to Matt Ryan getting up there in age. He might have a little bit of a resurgence. It's a better offense. You've got a young, developing receiver, Michael Pittman. You've got a superstar running back, Jonathan Taylor, and it's a very solid, one of the better defenses in the NFL. So they're definitely a division contender. You could argue they should maybe be in front of the Cowboys, but I'm going to keep them behind them because I think, Dak Prescott's better than Matt Ryan. Next, we have the Jacksonville Jaguars. So I'm just going to go with below average for Jacksonville. I actually think they're a little bit better than Atlanta. I'm mainly basing this off of Trevor Lawrence developing a little bit better in his second year. They also, they signed a bunch of players in free agency. I think they just had money and threw it around. That Christian Kirk contract was a horrible deal for them, but Christian Kirk is still a solid receiver. The Trayvon Walker pick, probably one of the worst picks in draft history. It is what it is, They kind of got screwed because it's like, would you rather have the first overall pick in 2022 or 2023? Yeah, 2023. Trayvon Walker to me is going to be a complete bust. It's just my personal opinion. I thought they should have taken Aiden Hutchinson, obviously, but we will see what happens with him. And, I think they can win 5 or 6 games, again, just based off the development of Trevor Lawrence. And they spent big in free agency. And also, you're not dealing with Urban Meyer anymore. So that is a nice scenario there. Next, we have the Kansas City Chiefs. So, with Patrick Mahomes, you're going to have to put them in Super Bowl contenders. They're a team that didn't make the Super Bowl last year with Mahomes. So you would think, kind of the way the NFL cycle works, they're another team like the Bills, like the Ravens. They're possibly due to, go to the Super Bowl. We will see, I guess. I personally think, it'll be interesting without Tyreek Hill, the major trade they made. I know they were able to get Sky Moore in the draft. I personally am not that high on Sky Moore, but it is Patrick Mahomes. They still have legit weapons. They've got Travis Kelce. They should be fine. And then hopefully the defense is improved. I would probably, you could move Baltimore behind them, I guess, just because of Mahomes. Kansas City is always going to be there. I think Mahomes will probably win 2 or 3 rings in his career, so he's still got maybe 2 in him. But winning the ring in the NFL is just so hard. We will leave them in front of Baltimore, I think. I think that's fair. Next, we have the Chargers. So the Chargers are probably a team, I would say, above average. I would say let's put them in the above average category personally. They have a lot of talent. They got Khalil Mack, but the AFC West is ridiculous with the Chiefs and with the Broncos. If they stay healthy, there's an argument they could be better than the Broncos. I mean, you've got Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack. The main issue is both those guys tend to get injured. How much does Herbert improve in his third year? Could he make the jump and be a legit MVP candidate? This is a high upside team. They really are. I might actually have to move them up. I might have too many teams, though, in division contenders. Like, that would be 3 AFC West teams up here. I don't know if I really want to do that. We might have to move the Browns down just because there's too much uncertainty at this point. We're going to move the Browns down to above average. There's just too much uncertainty. Next, we have the LA Rams. So, I mean, I want to put the Rams as Super Bowl contenders. I mean, obviously, they're coming off a Super Bowl win, but I always say this, repeating is basically impossible. So the idea, I'm going to leave them because you have to respect that they won the Super Bowl last year. But I think it's extremely unlikely they make it back to the Super Bowl. Extremely. I'm leaving them in Super Bowl contenders because they made it last year and they won it. But people have to understand it's virtually impossible to repeat. That's it. Maybe they do make it back, but repeating is so hard. It's so hard. Next, we have the Raiders. The AFC West is just ridiculous. I want to put a team in the average category. But, I mean, the Raiders, they're an above-average team. With the addition of Devontae Adams, they have a solid quarterback, Derek Carr. I didn't think it would work out like this where there's no average teams right now. But, yeah, they're an above-average team. They're right along, yeah, I like this. They're right along the lines of Arizona, in my opinion. You've got a superstar receiver. Darren Waller's really good. The quarterback is good, not great. And the defense is average. Very similar to the Arizona Cardinals situation. You could say Kyler is better than Carr, but very similar in my opinion with the Raiders being an above-average team, but they're going to have a very tough division. You've got to face these teams twice in division, Denver, Kansas City, and the Chargers. It's like I want to move the Chargers up. I would want to move the Chargers up in front of like Indianapolis, but they're just in such a hard division, man. They're such a hard division. Next, we have the Miami Dolphins, who, I mean, you could argue they should go in the average, but I'm basing on Tua improving. I mean, maybe we'll keep the Raiders in front of them. I think Tua's going to improve significantly, personally, with the addition of Tyreek Hill. He's a guy that I was high on before the draft. He's kind of been really conservative his first few years in the NFL. I think it's due to the lack of weapons. You've also got a really good tight end in Mike Gesicki and a defense that, you know, they're all right. I like Jerome Baker, the former Buckeye, but above average, it's going to be mainly, their year is going to be based off of how much does Tua improve as a quarterback with a brand new superstar receiver. That's what it's going to be based off of for Miami. So I'll say above average. They're a team that can win 10, maybe 11 games. We'll have to see. Next, we have the Minnesota Vikings. So this is a team, I am going to finally put a team in the average category, and it will be the Vikings. So, you know, the quarterback, Kirk Cousins, is solid, but you're in the same division as Aaron Rodgers. Do you really think the Vikings? I mean, Justin Jefferson is good. Thielen is decent, but I'd say he's probably going to start regressing soon. Dalvin Cook seems to be injured, you know, a decent amount. He's getting up there for running back age. The overall defense, the Vikings always seem to have a decent defense, but it's just a thing with Kirk Cousins kind of getting up there, maybe regressing a little bit next year. They're kind of an average team. I say maybe they go 9-8, maybe 10-7 at best. There's an argument to be made. You could put them in the above average category, but we're really splitting hairs at this point, so I'll leave them in average. Next, we have the New England Patriots. So with this team, I'm going to say average, but I'll put them in front of the Vikings. You could, there's another team. It just depends how much does Mac Jones improve, how much do you believe in Bill Belichick and how he coaches defense. I believe in Bill Belichick a lot. I might have to move them up. We might have to move them somewhere like there. I just think Mac Jones has a really low ceiling. Like, I don't think there's any circumstance where Mac Jones wins MVPs. You know, he's really just a game manager. But Bill Belichick, they should have that defense improved. I loved the first-round pick of Cole Strange from Chattanooga. Loved that pick. A lot of people hated it. I had Cole Strange as like my number 17th overall player. So we'll move them to the above average, just believing in young quarterback improvement and also Bill Belichick, you know, as a head coach. And they're not in the hardest division either. So it'll be interesting to see them and the Dolphins. Those are two evenly matched teams, in my opinion. Next, we have the New Orleans Saints. I'm going to say this is an average team, but I'm going to put them in the upper, kind of in front. Well, you're splitting hairs with these two teams, honestly, the Vikings and the Saints. I mean, the quarterback situation is still a major issue. I loved the Chris Olave pick. I don't know if I loved it, but I did like it. You've got Chris Olave. I think the main thing, what's going on with Michael Thomas? Seriously, it's a very weird situation with Michael Thomas. He's barely played the last 2 years. Apparently, he's still injured, but he should be ready for the start of camp, you would hope. They gave him a lot of money. They are a team that still does have salary cap issues. And again, the quarterback. It's like if you don't go into the regular season with a legit borderline elite quarterback, like I think all these teams in front of them have better quarterbacks. It just is what it is. Next, we have the New York Giants, another situation with quarterback play. Daniel Jones, I mean, I think they have to go in below average. We'll put them in front of Chicago, but due to the quarterback, below average. I did like their draft. It wasn't sexy, but it was good. Getting guys in the trenches, Thibodeau, the pass rusher from Oregon, and then Evan Neal. You know, they're building something. The one big thing for them, what's going on with Saquon Barkley? Can he stay healthy? Can he be a weapon, not only as a running back, but out of the backfield? I think Saquon might be the most talented running back in the NFL. The problem, he's always hurt. So that's really their major question. And then also the development of Evan Neal and Kayvon Thibodeau, their two top 10 picks. Again, it's tough with Daniel Jones. It's hard to really take them seriously. Maybe they could get to 7 wins and improve. We will see. I think they're going to be a team really looking for a quarterback, maybe moving up in the draft to draft a quarterback next year. Next, we have the New York Jets. I think it's pretty obvious they're in a very similar situation. I'm going to put them behind the Chicago Bears. They're in a very similar situation to the Giants. They had 2 top 10 overall picks. I loved the Garrett Wilson pick at number 10 overall. Garrett Wilson was my number 1 receiver. He should be an absolute star. The key thing for them, you still believe in Zach Wilson. You've got to. He's only going into his second year. This is a former number 2 overall pick. You've got Trevor Lawrence right next to him in the Jaguars, the number 1 overall pick. Is Zach Wilson legitimately a franchise quarterback? The Jets should get some answers to that this year. You would hope he would play a full 17 games, and we will see. Next, we have the Philadelphia Eagles. I think I'll go above average with the Eagles. I think we'll go right here just because I love the receiving core, and you think Jalen Hurts would improve a little bit. If you guys don't remember, they actually traded for A.J. Brown. So now their 2 best receivers, A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. That's an unbelievable 1-2. You've got the speedster Smith, and then you've got the big-bodied guy, possession guy, A.J. Brown, who can also stretch the field, as well as probably the steal of the draft, Nakobe Dean in the 3rd round. An unbelievable pick there. I think they're very similar to a team like the New England Patriots and how they're built with kind of maybe a little bit more of an average quarterback, but they are improving, especially their offense. I'm also really high on Dallas Goedert. I love Dallas Goedert, the tight end. I think he's due for a breakout season. The big question for Philadelphia, is Jalen Hurts a franchise quarterback? I personally think the answer is no. Maybe he can prove me wrong. We will see. Next, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I'm going to put the Steelers in the back end of the average category. They're in a pretty tough division, depending on what happens with Deshaun Watson. But you also have, Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow to deal with. The Steelers very likely will. Maybe they'll start Kenny Pickett week 1, but you would expect Mitch Trubisky to start week 1 and Kenny Pickett to be inserted sometime mid-season. They do have a really good defense. We know they have a superstar, TJ Watt. I thought they overpaid a little bit for Mika Fitzpatrick with his new contract, but he's still a really good safety. We're going to go in the back half of average. This is a really good defense, but an offense that's going to be hampered down by the quarterback play. They do have, how about that George Pickens pick? They've got really good receivers, Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool, and George Pickens. That's an unbelievable young receiving core, and we'll see how well Kenny Pickett, the only first-round quarterback, develops with them. Next, we have the Seattle Seahawks. So the Seahawks are another team. I would say at this point, they're probably one of the worst, trading Russell Wilson. The defense, not too good. To me, the Seahawks, I just don't know what the Seahawks want to do. So they're going to start Drew Lock. I guess maybe they're tanking, but if you're tanking, why wouldn't you just trade DK Metcalf, get younger, get another first-round asset, and build a young nucleus? At the very least, you need to trade Tyler Lockett, who I believe is already 29 or 30. So I just don't know what this franchise is doing. If you want to get younger, if you truly want to go through a rebuild, start Drew Lock, trade DK Metcalf for a first-round pick, trade Tyler Lockett for a second-round pick, fire Pete Carroll. Nothing against Pete Carroll, but he doesn't fit with the timeline. He's too old. He wouldn't want to go through a rebuild. And then tank, draft a quarterback, have another first-round pick, and build a young nucleus. That's what I would do if I was the Seahawks. I don't know what they're trying to do. Are you going to start Drew Lock and keep DK Metcalf and try and win 6 games? I mean, come on, that's a disaster. So I have them in the worst category. Next, it's the San Francisco 49ers. And to me, this is a team that's a division contender. It's definitely, we're going to put them at the back half because the quarterback situation. Trey Lance, very likely starting his first year. There's some unknowns, but the roster is just loaded. I would expect them to get a deal done with Deebo Samuel very soon. You also have Brandon Ayuk, and then Nick Bosa, a superstar pass rusher, and a really good defense. This is a loaded roster. And I almost want to move them in front of some of these teams. It's just the quarterback situation, you know? You're judging Trey Lance versus Joe Burrow. With the Colts, it's a little bit different. I don't think Matt Ryan is that unbelievable, but they just have a really good roster. Like, good offensive line, really good defense. One of the top-rated defense, according to ESPN FPI preseason rankings. So that's why they're ahead. You know, Dak's better. Aaron Rodgers is better, Russell Wilson is better than the current quarterback situation. So that's kind of why I have them at the back end of division contenders. But I do think they can contend for the division, in the NFC West, even with a Rams team. That would be kind of tough, but I'm not exactly extremely high on the Rams, personally, in my opinion. You know what we might have to do? I mean, because I only have one NFC team as a Super Bowl contender right now. Well, it's going to be 2. You're going to have to put the Buccaneers as a Super Bowl contender. But I'm also tempted to move both of these teams. Nah, we're going to leave them there. I'm also going to move the Buccaneers at this point to a Super Bowl contender just based off of, Tom Brady, obviously. It's really tough. Tom Brady's getting up there in age, but it's a situation where, again, it's basically impossible to repeat. So I knew they weren't winning it last year. Tom Brady does his little sham retirement, comes back. They still have a really good offense. They re-signed Chris Godwin. You've got Mike Evans. Gronk, I'm sure, is going to be back. And they do have a good defense. And it is Tom Brady. And the dude just doesn't seem to age. Even last year, he was like second in MVP voting. We might actually have to... I'm wondering, when it comes to the Super Bowl contenders, I like my AFC teams. The one thing you could do with the AFC, it's almost like... I want to move the Chargers up to at least, but that division is so tough, man. That division, right now I feel very confident the Bills are going to the Super Bowl. I'll just say that right now. But from the NFC, I don't think the Rams are going. The Bucs, I could see it. But maybe a team like Dallas, I just, the receivers, it's just such a question mark. Who else outside of CeeDee Lamb can Dallas count on? And the running back, Zeke is just... I love Zeke, but we know he's washed at this point. Let's just finish these rankings. So next, it's Tennessee. Tennessee ended up trading A.J. Brown for the number 18th overall pick and then drafted... I'll put them in the above-average category, but at the end of it, they trade A.J. Brown and then draft Treylon Burks. I think Treylon Burks is going to be a complete bust, and that's just my opinion. I've said it since I started, doing mock drafts all the way back in, January. That's just my opinion. So I think they really downgraded there. Derrick Henry is a beast. I think injury concerns are a major issue. He's had an absolutely huge workload, and he got injured already last year. And then Ryan Tannehill, he's average. Malik Willis, I thought, was an unbelievable value pick. We could see Malik Willis starting. You know what? I'm really not that high on this team. But, they have a decently easy division, right? They do have a decently easy division, so we'll leave them in above it. Now, I got to move them down, man. I'm not high on them. And then we've got Washington. I think this might be the most average team in the NFL. We're going to stick them smack dab in the middle of the average category. I actually think, you could go there. Carson Wentz, guys, what is Carson Wentz at this point, really? I mean, it's nothing against Carson Wentz, but it just doesn't do it for me. It's very similar to the Matt Ryan move, but Indianapolis has a much better roster. I think the key thing with Washington, the Commanders, what's going on with the Terry McLaurin contract situation? Are they able to re-sign him? And then what do you do at quarterback? Is Carson Wentz really your guy, or is it just a one-year stopgap type thing? And then Chase Young, he needs an absolute breakout year after the injury last year. He kind of started out slow and then got injured. But so far, guys, in mid-June, these would probably be my rough rankings. I might think about moving Atlanta down to here. I mean, we can go ahead and do that. And then, again, it's just the Super Bowl contenders. There's such a cluster in the AFC West right now. And then the NFC, could I move Green Bay? It's almost like Aaron Rodgers is due for a Super Bowl appearance, but I just hate the offseason that the Packers had. I mean, we can move them up because I would like 3 AFC and 3 NFC teams as Super Bowl contenders, and you could move, you got to do that. You got to put at least LA in the number 3 spot. But again, guys, it's basically impossible to repeat. The only reason they're up there is because they won the Super Bowl, and, they do have an absurdly talented roster. Let's not kid ourselves. But again, it's so tough to repeat. Maybe, imagine if Matt Stafford won back-to-back Super Bowls. That would be crazy. But, maybe my hottest take would be not having Cincinnati as Super Bowl contenders. In my opinion, I think they kind of caught lightning in a bottle last year. I don't think they're beating Mahomes. I don't think they're beating Josh Allen. I think the Bills have to be the odds-on favorite to win the Super Bowl right now. Everything seems to be aligning for them. It's just the way the NFL works, so I'm going to keep them at the number 1 overall spot. But I think these rankings are probably pretty good. You could argue Jacksonville should be down here, I guess. The Jets maybe even Chicago. But to me, Chicago always has at least a decent defense. So I'll say Justin Fields improves and they win 6 or 7 games. To me, these are the teams that could be in contention for the number 1 overall pick. Carolina has a better roster, but their quarterback is just so bad. If they trade for Baker Mayfield, they're a fringe average team in my opinion. But Sam Darnold was legitimately the worst starting quarterback last year, especially in the second half of last year. So guys, those are my just kind of fun little rankings here for 2022. Really early preseason. Make sure you're following me on Twitter. Link to that's always in the description. I'm, of course, the Depressed Ginger. Thank you for watching.